thanks to you, we know more and understand more, and our country and our world are more enlightened. Utmost to ensure that Harvard remains open to the world. And then in their lawsuit that was filed, Harvard has sued the Trump regime, saying it has made 7,000 foreign students pawns in an unconstitutional bid to bludgeon the university over its First Amendment protected viewpoints. Kyle Cheney was one of the first to post that lawsuit. The thing to note also is that the Trump regime is not alleging that Harvard actually violated any specific law. There's no you violated this, you engaged in this conduct. Also, we should note that I think there was a stat that it was 40% of a lot of the startups that have gotten over $1 billion have in the United States have CEOs who came from foreign countries and who studied at places like Harvard. Let's bring in David Weigel, reporter at Semaphore. You've been covering a lot of the creep to authoritarianism and in my view, the authoritarianism that's here. I mean, you can speak to the scapegoating of immigrants. Your newsletter's been focused on that a lot recently, how the Trump regime's going to be trying to sell the fact that it's taking so many Americans off of Medicaid by targeting immigrants. And we see this angle here with Harvard as well. It's attacking the international students to then kind of implement the overall authoritarian agenda. The immigrants, the migrants are the pawns in this broader authoritarian scheme. Dave, you've been covering this for a long time, alum of Washington Post before coming to Semaphore, where you're leading their political coverage. Talk to us about this.
Certainly. I read the complaint from Harvard's attorneys, which include Robert Hur, who you might remember from last season. And it's pretty convincing. I don't think your listeners need to be convinced by this, but they point out the administration has been spamming them basically with requests, demanding information, has made asks that it can't answer. For example, any protest activity on campus in the last 5 years. And not just protest activity includes lots of things. Video, not just of something that went out of hand or somebody was scuffling, et cetera, et cetera. Any protest. So they point out this violates the First Amendment. This violates, or they argue, I should say, but it's convincing. First Amendment, Due Process Clause, Administrative Procedure Act. And if you're, again, probably not one of your listeners, if you're out there saying, haha, I love seeing the government stick it to these guys, they ask for all their legal fees to be paid as part of the settlement. So taxpayers may end up paying Harvard legal team. I'm not sure if that's a great blow against the elites. But backing up, what is the political strategy here? Everything does run through America First nationalism and portraying their opponents from the Democratic Party to elite institutions as tools of the global elite who care about immigrants, not about you. It's Stephen Miller mindset. It permeates everything that they do. In this case, hypocritical is the wrong word. In this case, it does go back on something Trump hinted during the campaign, because he likes to say he keeps his promises. He delivers on his campaign promises. You might remember when he went on the All In podcast, hosts in Silicon Valley who wanted him to win and wanted him to agree with them. He said, well, any talented foreign student, we should staple a green card to their diploma when they get out. And the host said, that's great. And the campaign quickly said, actually, he didn't mean that. And this is obviously the opposite of that. The implications are thousands of people who, fair to say that the definition of elite we can all agree on, the elite of the world who come to this campus are now in flux. They're being told, go apply for something else, which they can't do, change your travel arrangements, which they weren't budgeted for. This is the opposite of attracting talent because, again, privilege, the conservative argument here, you don't like the Ivy League. You think that they're cruel about Israel. You don't like that they're woke. You don't like DEI, whatever. The kind of students that are being attracted by this are the ones doing high level research. There are some students who are undergrads and maybe they're coming from around the world. Their parents are rich, whatever. There are also people coming to do high level research. Exactly the people whose grants are being canceled right now. There's this impact that's going to happen on the research capacity that we just taken for granted for 70 years. 70 years, how long this foreign student program has been going on. And it's being blown up because politically, it's very safe, the Republicans think, to say the other side cares about immigrants and we care about you. Vance has even I want to put words in his mouth, but the side of the party, the Miller side of the party, very comfortable saying, let's take these spaces away and give them to Americans, without any concern for are they going to have the same skills, the same talents? Are we going to benefit because they stay in the country? Because part of the idea here is let's pull talented immigrants into the country, and keep them here and make sure that if they found a company, they do it in America. This is what some Republicans, including Trump, said they wanted last year. They contrasted, let's say, asylum seekers who don't have super marketable skills or research abilities crossing the border and getting asylum. They said, well, we don't want those people. Maybe we want the talented people coming to elite universities. And now they're saying, no, we don't want anyone in these schools care more about immigrants than they care about you.
Yep.
So it's politically consistent, but it is, you use the word authoritarian. That's a fine word to use. If we were watching Canada do this, or watching France do this right now and say we're not letting any Americans into the school for political reasons, we probably would use that word. So I don't know why the word would be anathema to something happening here.
Sometimes saying it in ways like that, I've never said it the way you just said
Mm-hmm.
it, but you're right. If we were to see Canada, France, the United Kingdom, you name the country, doing the things and say, French President Emmanuel Macron did X, Y, Z, I could guarantee you that we would be saying France is an authoritarian state. And yet the language here, is still outside of, a few others, not really capturing, I think, what you just said very directly. But, it doesn't seem to follow a pattern right here, which is, I think this is inextricably intertwined with what happened with this budget bill, which is going to be very harmful for Trump's base. I mean, it's literally the largest redistribution of wealth, and it's going to impact red states, and particularly Trump voters who have higher amounts of percentage-wise of people on Medicaid, states that are taker states versus donor states that rely on the federal government more people on SNAP, more people that rely on the Department of Education. So the pattern is, you do a move like this, you kind of screw over your base, you pickpocket them, you then do the smoke screen, you do something that's unconstitutional, but you attack foreigners and you just shove it, in the American people's face. Ha ha. I think literally the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, did a post yesterday, suck it. Like, she literally wrote, suck it, like, suck it. And then Donald Trump goes and golfs. And then he goes and golfs for the weekend, does a meme coin thing. See you later. So to me, and as you as a writer who covers this, like, does it now kind of follow, the pattern? Is this going to be the week where he does more tariff threats? And then and the market's going to go down. And then he's going to have to be like, okay, I'm going to have to make a deal now, which isn't really a deal. It's just fixing the mess. It just feels, okay, here we go again. It's this storyline.
Yes, and I'd say my first principle covering this administration is never be surprised or never say this is unprecedented, even if it's unprecedented, because what's the point? This administration was very clear. I should say the Trump campaign is very clear about what it would do if it became another administration. Heritage Foundation, Claremont Institute. There was a lot of good reporting on what conservatives wanted from a future Republican administration, and how it would use the levers of power. So I start by not being surprised by things and say, okay, well, how would this work? And the only downside there is sometimes a reader thinks that you're being a little too glib about it, which guilty. Yeah, you should be clear about the implications of this. But they've been throughout these 140 days or so ready to use executive power that they will probably get reversed. The best case scenario for them is they get a good judgment at the Supreme Court, or at least the Supreme Court upholding a Fifth Circuit ruling, which happened this week with the ability to suspend independent agency heads. We're going to, hey, everybody, we're throwing out a 90-year-old precedent in a memo because we think we can. They win some of these, but generally they have the DOJ, they have you and me and everyone paying taxes. They have the power of the federal government, with all of the guns of the security state behind it, endless resources. And the self justification for this for a lot of conservatives is, well, when Democrats had this, they did this to